So imagine the shock when $1 trillion friendship, a bond forged through world wars and decades of integrated trade, is treated like a common bargaining chip in a high-stakes game of chicken. Donald Trump has once again set his sights on Canada, escalating tariff threats and hurling accusations of disloyalty at America's closest economic partner. But this time, the revelation that has sent shockwaves through Washington is not just the threat itself. It is the cold, calculated response from across the border. Prime Minister Mark Carney has chosen a path that contradicts every expectation of political theater, refusing to match chaos with chaos. It is honestly hard to believe that a relationship this vital is being pushed to the brink by a fracture inside America, the political culture itself. This is not just about softwood lumber or automotive parts. We are talking about a fundamental recalibration of how power and leadership work in an interconnected world. And trust me, the consequences of this volatility are beginning to send a bill to ordinary lives that will be impossible to ignore. Let me fill you in on what has been happening lately. Donald Trump's approach to Canada has been consistent in its unpredictability. From the moment he first suggested near-universal tariffs on goods from our northern neighbor, he has treated the United States-Canada relationship as if it were an adversary rather than a bedrock of American prosperity. He has lashed out at Canadian leadership, thrown around accusations about influence, and signaled that even the closest allies are subject to his personal grievances. From the get-go, his strategy has been to use uncertainty as leverage, a pattern that defined his first term and has only intensified in his second. Whether it was steel, aluminum, or the very framework of the USMCA, the defining characteristic has been a demand for submission through intimidation. But here is where the rubber meets the road. We are now months into a sustained trade crisis where essential supply chains are on hold. Energy, manufacturing, and agricultural flows are getting slashed by the friction of new costs. Workers and small business owners in the Midwest and the Sun Belt are left in the lurch as the border stability they rely on vanishes. And this mess is unfolding because the administration is at a standstill with a Canadian government that has decided to stop playing the game of theatrical escalation. And guess who is stuck? Right in the middle. Yep, the American worker. They are supposed to be protected by America First policies. But here is the kicker. The president is not interested in the boring, effective work of coordination. He wants a spectacle. And before we go any further, let us be real for a second. You cannot bully your way through a trillion-dollar trading relationship without hitting your own people first. Now back to the matter at hand. Reports from early December revealed just how frustrated the White House has become with Canada's refusal to flinch. Trump has labeled Mark Carney's measured diplomacy as a form of manipulation, and even went as far as to suggest that Canadian communication with American audiences is a threat to national sovereignty. Talk about strong words. Essentially, the administration is calling for total submission, labeling any partner that seeks alternative alliances or hedges against American volatility as disloyal. And this was not a private conversation. The president made sure to air his grievances publicly, making it clear that he views restraint as an insult. This announcement sent shockwaves through the Republican establishment because it raised a terrifying question. If the president could turn against our most integrated partner, what did that mean for the predictability of the entire global economic system? Now, this is not the first time we have seen this. The president's loyalty really only extends to his own narrative. Whenever someone stops being useful or dares to prioritize stability over spectacle, he is quick to turn on them. We have spotted this pattern time and time again. Just think about how he turned on Jeff Sessions after he recused himself, prioritizing a personal sense of betrayal over the functioning of the Justice Department. Then there was Bill Barr, who was discarded the moment his findings did not align with the desired political outcome. And let us not forget Mike Pence, who faced a campaign of public pressure for simply following the constitutional process. Now it looks like the entire nation of Canada is in the hot seat. This pattern is becoming all too familiar. You can provide the United States with 60% of its imported oil and serve as its largest export market. But the moment you refuse to be a personal bargaining chip, you are tossed aside without a second thought. So what did Canada do to tick him off? Well, it all boils down to Carney's refusal to participate in the chaos. The impasse happened because the White House wanted immediate theatrical concessions on border security and trade deficits, while Carney was trying to maintain a rules-based, predictable framework. Ultimately, the relationship just fractured since the administration was unwilling to value coordination over intimidation. As Prime Minister Carney decided to take a deliberately boring stance, he de-escalated risk and refused to respond to insults with more insults. His approach seemed to be pure risk management, diversify trade, seek alternative alliances, and reduce exposure to American mood swings. At first, some in the Republican Party seem to appreciate the necessity of keeping the border open. They understand that the restaurant owner in Florida and the supplier in the Midwest depend on this flow. But as the crisis dragged into December, the consequences of this leaking power became visible. While Canadian leaders were steadfast in their restraint, the American public began to feel the pinch of rising prices and disappearing shipments. This was the moment the president began to sweat a little. He values the appearance of dominance above all else. He does not want to be tied to an economic slowdown that is clearly self-inflicted. And then Carney made a move that, according to the White House, was a serious misstep. He spoke directly to the American people about the reality of economic interdependence. In the administration's eyes, this was not communication, it was subversion. Any ally who dares to explain the cost of tariffs to American voters is instantly labeled a traitor. Now, here is where it gets interesting. This left the Republican Party in a tight spot. On one side, they need the president's base to maintain their positions. The support base will drop them like a hot potato if the loyalty signal is lost. And on the flip side, they actually have to govern a country whose economy is a deeply integrated system of energy, finance, and manufacturing. That means figuring out how to prevent empty hotel rooms in Florida and quiet factories in the Rust Belt. The tricky part is that solving these problems requires exactly what the president hates: compromise and a return to predictable rules. So they are caught in a bind, and they can either keep cheering for disruption, which only makes the economic damage worse, or they can do their jobs and protect the livelihoods of their constituents, which will definitely make the president turn against them. It is a tough situation, and that is the mess the administration creates for its own leaders. The president demands total loyalty to his volatility, but then points fingers when the volatility predictably causes a slowdown. This whole scenario is causing major stress within the GOP. If the president is willing to publicly undermine our closest ally, every member of the party is left wondering if they are the next target for a grievance-driven primary challenge. Those moderates who are trying to balance economic reality with political survival are now worried sick about being tossed under the bus. Meanwhile, the populist faction believes the problem is not the tariffs, but that they are not tough enough. Things became even more intense when Steve Schmidt, a figure who spent decades inside Republican politics, broke away with a blistering critique. He had been warning that chaos is not strength and that stability is not weakness. When someone who helped build the modern conservative movement starts calling your behavior reckless and destructive, you are in a world of hurt. Now, here's the kicker. The legal challenges have reached a boiling point. A coalition of small business owners and regional trade groups decided to take legal action to stop the unilateral imposition of these tariffs. On December 10th, a lawsuit was filed in federal court stating that the administration's use of emergency powers to tax closest allies was a gross overreach. They pointed out the constitutional principle that the power to regulate commerce and set tariffs belongs to Congress, not the executive branch. The legal process moved pretty quickly because the judge recognized the urgency. Every day this continues, the economic infrastructure of trust erodes further. And let me tell you, the judge did not hold back in a ruling that has the White House reeling. The court declared the administration's actions constitutionally indefensible. That is legal speak for saying you have got no solid ground to stand on here. You are just abusing your power for a political performance. Calling out a sitting president by name for eroding democratic norms created a real stir. This is a huge deal that does not usually happen in a functioning democracy. Legal experts are noting that we have not seen this kind of judicial pushback against trade policy in generations. J. Michael Ludig, a conservative legal voice who cannot be dismissed as a partisan, went on the air and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said that the administration's attempt to treat trade as a personal bargaining chip is a direct threat to the rule of law. Just think about that for a moment. This is coming from a foundational conservative voice. When legal experts from both sides start tossing around terms like unprecedented and self-sabotage, that is the moment to really pay attention and let us break this down, because it is not just a captivating legal story. It has serious consequences for how our government operates. First up is the immediate political fallout. The president is already facing significant backlash as tourism drops and cross-border manufacturing slows. Approval ratings in key border states are taking a hit as the bill for disruption finally arrives at the dinner table. Representatives are getting anxious about the upcoming midterm elections, which is definitely adding to the tension. And honestly, seeing the United States become a threat to its own partner is not a good look. Most folks in America have a good deal of respect for our alliances as a vital part of our security. Even if they want better deals, the opposition is definitely planning to take advantage of this. They will argue that the president believes he is above the economic laws of gravity and does not hold the constitutional system in high regard. This is going to be Exhibit A in proving that the administration confuses dominance with competence. Now let us touch on what this means for our institutions. The civil servants and trade officials have been working hard to keep the USMCA alive, wanting it to be viewed as above partisan influence. But by turning trade into a spectacle, the administration has waded right into a crisis of credibility. If we stay silent while these norms are brushed aside, our own standing in the world takes a permanent hit. This situation shines a massive spotlight on the core principle at stake: stewardship versus domination. At the heart of the issue is whether a leader can just upend a trillion-dollar relationship whenever he feels like it. If he gets his way, it could totally change how our entire economic system operates, privileging mood swings, overmarkets, and for 250 years, American power was built on being the anchor of alliances and setting predictable rules. But this president has always been uncomfortable with those limitations. He craves total control. If this violation is allowed to stand, it is a significant boost to a model of power that treats volatility as a weapon. That is a dangerous precedent that will not just disappear when he leaves office. It becomes our new unstable reality. Democracy relies on the assumption that people in power will play by the rules, even when it is inconvenient. And when those norms crumble, the prosperity starts to falter right along with them. Looking ahead to the next election cycle, it is clear that the narrative being set now is bound to influence how things go. If the story playing out is one of a leader battling every institution and coming out on the losing side of an economic slowdown that spells trouble for his party, voters usually do not reward chaos and dysfunction once the cost shows up in their own bank accounts. They want stability and competence, qualities they are increasingly seeing reflected in the adult-in-the-room approach coming from the North. Right now, the White House is not offering either, so expect to hear a message focused on a return to normal governance after years of being told that breaking things was the point. There are folks who believe that if we just respect our allies, the system might actually start working again. That message might just hit home for a lot of voters, including some who once cheered for the disruption. So here is the deal. It is honestly hard to believe we are witnessing a pivot where the world's most powerful economy is forcing its closest friends to plan for its own volatility. This is not just about trade, it is about whether we still value trust as a form of national infrastructure. If we decide that dominance is more important than durability, we are basically saying our constitutional principles do not matter anymore. That would mean stepping into a realm where power is just a performance at the expense of everyone in the cheap seats. It is about so much more than a headline or a soundbite. It is about whether we genuinely have a system that works properly or if we are just stuck with whoever can generate the most noise. So keep an eye on this. Things are just heating up, and the next few weeks are going to be crucial as the Supreme Court weighs in. We are just getting started, and this ride is far from over. The stakes have never been higher, the evidence of damage is stronger, and the outcome for the American economy has never been more unpredictable. In today's digital world, cryptocurrency is no longer just a trend. For many people, it has become a real business opportunity that can be started with basic knowledge and an internet connection. The first step in treating crypto as a business is education. Understanding simple concepts like Bitcoin, Ethereum, wallets, exchanges, and how the market works is essential before putting in any money. Some people use trading to earn short-term profits, while others focus on long-term holding. And there are also options like staking and passive income where crypto can grow over time without constant buying and selling. What makes crypto attractive is flexibility. You can work from anywhere, control your own schedule, and start with a small amount if you are careful. However, crypto is not gambling. Successful people treat it seriously. They do proper research, manage risk wisely, and never invest money they cannot afford to lose. The market goes up and down, so patience and discipline matter more than chasing quick profits. When crypto is handled with planning and consistency, it can become a long-term income path instead of a risky shortcut. If you want more simple and practical videos about crypto and online income, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay connected for upcoming content.